Welcome to the Let's Go Recovery podcast, where we investigate sobriety and beyond that, explore solutions to help us heal at the core, where the root of our problems like addiction or alcoholism begin. We hope you hear something in today's podcast that ignites a change in your life.
Studio today was special guest Blake Mathews, co-founder of formerly Intoxicated and Sober House Records. Since he's got some sobriety under his belt, we wanted to get him into the studio and talk about all the amazing things that he's doing with his music artistry, but also with the Phoenix.org. Welcome to the set and the show. Blake Mathews, man, cool to have you on. What's going on, man?
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Just present, happy to be here on the podcast. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. We met at a show that our friend was throwing not that long ago, and you had a booth set up, and I saw some of the stuff you're doing, and I really want to jump right into it. We talked a lot about recovery versus sobriety and how that element of music can actually be the jumping off point for a lot of people where they go, hey, man, here's why I got sober. Here's what was going on. So take me back to where maybe music became part of your sobriety journey and how we're here today even.
Sure. So before I make it all about me,
I love that.
I want to actually tell the story of how we met, because I think there's a lot of value, some nugget there. So like Tracy said, we met at Mesa Art Center, right? Brock and Victory Recovery and the Fentanyl Project put on a Night to Prevail, which was an amazing event. And we had a booth, right? We connected for a couple minutes, and that was that. Didn't talk to each other for maybe 6 months or about 6 months or so. And then I got lunch with Brock, and he was like, dude, I got to put you back in touch with Tracy. So he sent me your number, and I called you. I was expecting to spend maybe 5 or 6 minutes on the phone with you. How long did we talk?
Almost an hour, man.
Literally an hour and 43 minutes.
Wow.
The only reason I know that is because my biological mom, she always says 143. 143 is like a condensed way of saying I love you, right? Wow. 1 4 LOVE 3 YOU 143. So I hung up the phone, and God had his hands all over that conversation, man. And your side of that story though was Tracy was on his way to a detox center, right? Was it to speak that morning?
I speak at a detox center every Thursday.
And you get there, and there's no one there, right? And from your perspective in the moment, this just shows you the difference between, right, like human perspective and the God idea, right? Our whole perspective to recovery is elevating into that perspective of how can we lead vertically? How can we see things from a higher perspective, get out of our own way? And if that hadn't panned out the way it did at the detox center, then we wouldn't have had that time and space to share with each other on the phone. So
it's cool that you look at it like that, because everything has that sort of progression of like, what do I want even right now? What do I want right now in this moment? And how do we set that aside for where something greater than ourselves, something bigger than us gets to take over? In that moment, I told you I was frustrated by my day because it didn't go the way that I had planned it. Like, I want to go there at 9:30. I want to impact lives. Like, it seems like it's a really good thing that I'm doing. But in that moment, I didn't get to do it, and I was frustrated. But like I told you, and you just reiterated that phone call goes to voicemail, because I don't answer my phone right then. You may or may not leave a message just because, like, hey, I don't know this guy real good. Am I even going to call you back? Do I know who you are? But in that moment, we connected, and that's why we're sitting here right now. But even further back than that, you decided to make some life changes. Your life was going down a certain path, and then, hey, man, you got to clean up your life, hence the name formerly Intoxicated, right? Right. So talk to me a little bit about that early stuff for you where you decided to make a change, which ultimately is why we're here today. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. When I share in group, just to put into perspective, I always say, I could tell you about the time that I crashed my dad's car into the front of someone's house on 24th Street in Missouri. I could tell you about the time that Homeland Security showed up at my mom's front door knocking, right? I could tell you about the time that I got kicked out of Brophy. I could tell, like, we all have this laundry list of stories, but I believe as important as it is to unearth those things, right, in conjunction with a mentor or a partner or a spiritual advisor, a sponsor, whatever, to each their own, I think we have better things to talk about. Right. And for me, that change, it started in Nashville, Tennessee. So I moved to Tennessee in 2014 to pursue an education in general business with a focus in entertainment. I didn't want to go to college, but my dad was like, "You're going to college." And I was like, "All right, okay." That's the kind of family. I was adopted at birth, into an amazing family, provided an awesome opportunity to succeed. I had anything I could have ever needed to succeed, but you know how this disease works. Some of it is genetic predisposition. Some of it are the circumstances and environments that we find ourselves surrounded in. And I was the black sheep in our family that went down that path. But thank God I did. I wouldn't change a thing about it. Found myself in Nashville, Tennessee, studied songwriting, business, engineering. From the outside looking in, everything was awesome. We were throwing events, festivals, thousands of people attending our events out in Tennessee. Shout out to Deep Tropics, Blake, out in Tennessee. But from the inside looking out, I was neck deep in the grip of a super, super serious drug addiction that nobody really knew. I was a functioning addict. And, I managed until I just couldn't. And I hit a breaking point. And I called my dad, thankfully, and just told him what was going on. And he helped me check into treatment within 48 hours. So the first step was me asking for help. I had tried to do it alone multiple times, but I really needed to let go of everything. I was so attached to the fact that we had so many recurring events with community partners, and I had my job and I had my relationship and I had all of these great things going in my life. How could I ever have time to let go of all that and go to rehab? Right. I had way too much stuff going on mentally for me to come to grips with that until God did for us what we could not do for ourselves, right? Everything fell apart. I lost the house, the relationship, everything ended. And I just said, "God, take it all from me." And I checked into Integrative Life Center in Nashville, Tennessee. When I went into treatment, I was really surprised at with all due respect, Integrative Life Center changed my life. But I was really surprised at the deficit of music and healing arts-based programming in that setting. I've always been a really creative person, and general therapy is great for me. I love learning. I love unpacking things. I did some EMDR and all the other stuff that comes along with being in treatment. They had a massage therapist. We did sweat lodges. It was great, but there wasn't really any music. I think we had someone come in with like a guitar or something once.
Kumbaya.
Yeah.
Kumbaya.
And I was like, great, still grateful,
Sure.
but there was something, I needed something more. I'm an artist. I'm a songwriter. I'm a producer. I'm a DJ. I've spent the last 15 years of my life cultivating this lifestyle. And now I'm coming to grips with the fact that none of my tools, none of my, crutches, if you will, are available to me. And maybe that was a part of my process. Maybe I needed to be left alone, bare and naked, with no piano, no, station with an interface and a microphone. Like I was forced to face myself. But hindsight, on the other side of treatment in Tennessee, I moved back to Arizona, and I let go of music entirely because it was a huge trigger for me. And I didn't know what space or place that influence was meant to play in my life. I didn't have anyone guiding me saying, no, music can actually be a part of your recovery.
Sure.
I didn't have anyone there telling me that. And over time, I think my willingness to let go is ultimately what made room for God to kind of fill in the gaps. And I met this amazing woman who she came out to one of my shows, and I was teetering in and out of sobriety now, right? I had went to treatment, right? But I got back home. I wasn't working a program. I got my job, right? I'm managing a Sherwin-Williams and doing,
Sure.
just going on with day-to-day life. But my recovery really wasn't built upon a solid foundation, And this woman walks into my life. She shows up at one of the shows, and we really hit it off, And we formed a great relationship. She started volunteering in a treatment center through the Phoenix, actually. Wow. And she just pitched this idea to me. Why don't you bring your music into treatment centers? Wow. And it just, I was scared actually.
Sure.
I was like, well, I don't want to go back to rehab. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Plus I was like, I wasn't even clean, you know?
Right.
I was trying to get clean.
Right.
But it gave me a reason. Now I had a purpose. Wait a sec. I can use the gift that God's given me to help people. I don't have to hide in the shadows and present myself as okay, but not really okay, right? So the first time we went down to Chicanos por la Casa in South Phoenix, and they loved it, man. We brought lyric sheets in for everybody, and it just clicked in that moment that, you know, my purpose is to be a vessel for the will and word of God, and where he seems to be guiding me at this space is to assist people in integrating music into their recovery.
And I think there's so much beauty in the fact that your tools are your tools. Like I had a great sermon presented to me one time. It had 3 circles, and the circles were your talents, like so what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and that what God's needs are. And these 3 circles come together, and that little like kind of crossover, it creates like a triangle in the middle. It's the sweet spot, right? Like we can go along doing what we're good at, but we don't feel good about it, right? Like the job, right? We're punching a clock, getting paid. Okay, great. But then you find something that you like, you get paid for and you're passionate about, like, okay, that's awesome. And then God steps in and then says, hey, I need this here. And that sounds a little bit like where you're at is that sweet spot where things you're good at, passionate about, God has some need in there and people don't recognize. And you're absolutely right. And it's a probably an area where I struggle the most is the kind of closed-mindedness on the route to recovery, I'll call it, right? That idea of how do I change my life? And stopping drinking and drugging is like kind of got this like, oh, great, I stopped drinking and drugging. I'm miserable, right? And you're saying, wait a minute, like that fight doesn't have to be yours anymore, right? Like get around people that are like-minded. So if it's music, right? You're talking, you had a great event the other night. Some of my buddies went to, they said it was amazing. And it was, they were like, dude, I never thought I would do this stuff sober. That could be the bridge to that guy staying clean for a little while and having his eyes open and some more willingness because I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying the things that are not just sitting in a meeting hall trying to stay sober. Like, good luck with that, right? But now you get to participate in these people's lives on a way that is both impactful, keeping them clean, and then you hit on the very most important thing, creating a purpose. Like, what's the purpose behind staying sober if you're not going to impact and influence somebody else's life? That's the key, right?
Talk to me.
Right, that's the key, right? I mean, if you're telling me like that you're standing on a stage somewhere, and I don't care if you're singing a sober song or not, you're influencing that audience, right? Might as well influence them in a positive way. That's not saying, hey, you're a loser, your life's a mess, like go do this, go do that. You're saying, hey, man, if you want to make a change in your life, today could be the day, right? Today could be the day. And if I do that through art, we've had on our show, Kristen Day, Art of Our Soul. Awesome. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they do healing therapy through art. I went in there with an open mind and was like, bro, this is so powerful. You know what I mean? You're like, I never thought, forming art on a board was going to be something. It's amazing. I did shooting with Brock. We did a recovery-minded room clearing. I was like, bro, everybody should do this. And every time I get with somebody like you that's kind of got that art mindset, I think everybody ought to have this opportunity. I'm glad you're doing the work because you're carrying the message, right? Back in 1940, whatever year it came out, the book got written in a way that said, as the result of the steps, we had a spiritual awakening and we carried that message to others that still struggle. That's what it said in 1945. I believe you're doing it today. So I'm telling you right now on camera, I'm proud of you. Thank you for carrying that message because that means a lot, not just in the way that, again, it was written in kind of black and white. You're creating a new area that I think people will react to. And that's the reason you're here today. I mean, the reason you're here today is to get somebody else to go, what do you mean? I can heal through music? Absolutely. What are you saying to the person that's kind of jaded by the idea of that they're just trying to stay sober and like you were, right? You're saying I'm in and out, I can't stay sober. And then that like light switch comes on. What can you say to that person that's hearing us maybe for the first time trying to make a change? And now Blake says, hey man, or yeah, gal, hey young lady.
Sure.
Like what is that thing?
Well, first of all, thank you for your perspective. Yeah, great share. It was told to me that we need an experience, not just an explanation.
love that.
Right. And in order for us to have an experience, I have to be open-minded and willing enough to have it. Right.
Yeah.
I've heard it said that, you know, the spirit of the universe or God or whatever it is enters us when we're open and willing to receive. Right. So I think the first step is finding some degree of open-mindedness and willingness to try anything. Right. Even something as simple as, for me in the early days of my recovery, getting a job was crucial.
Sure.
Like I had to lay the foundation for me to be secure and safe before I could even think about going to a yoga class. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right, sure.
Like, and a holistic approach, right, provides us a sense of community while we're also looking for work and this and that. But my recommendation would be to find, I'm going to get super practical here, actually, sure. Because I just went to the probation office this morning because I got a guy that's getting out of prison, right? And he wants to jump straight into the studio. He's like, bro, right. when are we going to the studio? And as much as I want to, I know where he's at and I want to take him there, but we got to do the work to lay the foundation and create a solid framework for us to participate in some of these more maybe enriching and spiritually, you know, exciting activities that can be a part of our recovery.
Sure.
Right. But for me, it really, Taros was actually a huge step in the right direction. I went and worked for Taros as a recovery coach. And the life hack that I kind of feel like I tapped into was finding work where I could harvest and learn lessons about what I wanted to do when I took the leap to work for myself, but I could train and make an impact all during the process. So for people who are maybe, you know, getting clean and have a dream of what recovery could be, or maybe see someone like me or you who own a nonprofit, who are operating in the community, right? How do I get there? Right. That's a genuine question. Like I saw Brock, I saw Rob Best from the Barbell Saves Project. I saw Michael with the Phoenix, and I'm thinking like, man, I want to be like you guys, you know, sure. But I've got like 3 weeks clean, bro. I'm like, I need to get some skin in the game. And that's the reality of it, you know? So I was fortunate enough to have someone who was giving me a little kick in the butt to say, you got to get a job. Right. So I went on Indeed, I tailored my resume, I did the basics, right? And I landed with Taros, and I worked for Taros for about 19 months. And this past December, I took the leap of faith to start, you know, our own business, Sober House Records. And dude, it's so cool now that I've taken this leap of faith. I had to make sure that I was ready for it, and I prayed and meditated, and it really was the right time. But Taros has come around full circle and actually supported as a sponsor of the formerly Intoxicated Recovery Tour. That's cool. So it's just, you know, God works in mysterious ways. But like you said, like, what would I tell someone who's earlier in their recovery or their sobriety that maybe, you know, wants a little bit more life and love and excitement, the life worth living that we talk about, right? Work the program. Start there. Seriously. Because I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't start in the rooms. And wow. and you know, it's that, but then let's also create some supplemental options, right? Sure. You do the work with a sponsor or whatever that looks like for you in 12-step meetings. That's going to be a requirement of our program. Sure. Right? I'm building out this program for sober artists that are reintegrating, and 12-step is just undeniably 100%. Spiritually enriching, right? Sure. And so that's what I would say. Start there, dude. Like, you got to find that path through 12-step, but then download the Phoenix app. Tap in with us. Come to one of our sober events. Go the extra mile to integrate other fun things into that 12-step approach. To each their own, but that's been my approach.
I love that. You hit on the rooms, and it says in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, that rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, right? So somebody set down a path, and we've both taken that, right? And that's a journey through the 12 steps of healing. We have a special part of our podcast coming out. We created a series that kind of re-articulates the verbiage, or, you know, some of that's antiquated. I get that. People pick it up and be like, I don't even understand it. So we sat down and did it. And one of the reasons we did that was to take away some of the pressure and the dauntingness of these tasks of writing down the people we failed, like putting down some personal insecurities on paper or things we've done in our life that we're not proud of, and putting that down is part of the path, the journey that you've talked about, and that happens through the 12 steps. I call it a healing journey back to myself. Like through those 12 steps, I rediscover who I am, who God has intended me to be. Now, who I've become isn't always, again, a pretty picture, right? Like you've went some areas, I've done some things that I go, man, I don't want to do that. But the only way that I stop, playing a part in that is by making some changes at the spiritual, the mental, and the physical levels, right? So the physical level is I don't drink and don't use. The spiritual level is something that you've kind of tapped on a little bit, and I want to go into that spiritual aspect where you become alive, and then you also ask for some outside force, right? So you've called it God, spirit, universe. It's unimportant to us. I think you'd agree what they call it, what a listener might say about that. But I want you to talk a little bit about that spiritual experience that you had early on, in your recovery. You've been sober quite a while now, but early on you had that experience. What was that like? What happened for you? And then tell me a little bit about what they might be able to expect.
Sure. I mean, we're continuing to have spiritual experiences. As far as I'm concerned, this is a spiritual experience, right? Yeah, absolutely. Spirit, the core of the word inspiration is to be in spirit, right? To be inspired, to be in spirit, inspiration. Wayne Dyer talks a lot about that.
I love Wayne.
Anyone's interested in learning more about the power of inspiration, look into Wayne Dyer. But my spiritual experience was grounded in the relationship that I have with my sponsor. And when I was preparing to do my 4th step with my sponsor, I woke up and I wanted to drink one of these clean causes. Right. Actually, I swear to God.
This is by the way, while we're talking about it, this is a caffeine, like power drink, right?
Yeah. So Clean Cause it's a natural yerba mate tea. It's an energy drink with 160 milligrams of caffeine, based out of Texas, I think. They donate 50% of their net profit to sending people into sober livings.
Oh, wow.
And one of our artists, actually, his name's Ramopoulos Pleasant. He already got a scholarship for getting into a place. So they're really doing some cool stuff. Point being, though, I wanted to have a clean cause that morning. I thought to myself, man, I'm going to meet my sponsor. I really need to amp myself up for the day. And intuitively, something inside of me just said, no clean cause today. Like, I need you to be here. I need you to be present with me. And I didn't fully understand. I was like, what do you mean? Like, they've been sending us these drinks. I'm drinking them every day. Right. I feel great. I'm so productive, this and that. But I just trusted the process. And I showed up to participate in the step work with my sponsor. And that's how I knew that I could trust the spirit that I was feeling, the inspired vision for what recovery could be. I'm sitting across the table from a guy that has what I want. He's running a business. He's spiritually fit. Like, at least from what I can see, I'm experiencing, a desire to be like him, to have what he has, with no caffeine induced or drug or alcohol induced. That's how I knew, okay, wait a sec, I think I'm having a spiritual experience right now. And he was like, you are,
That's cool.
But we can have spiritual experiences anywhere. I found God, I found spirit cutting grass the other day. Wow. I was whacking my weeds and getting ready to do my 4th step. I'm working my steps for the 2nd time now with this new sponsor. And I laid my 4th step paperwork out on the picnic table we have out front, and I just started cutting grass, just listening, asking God, like, who am I resentful towards? What do I need to unpack here? And then as soon as I put the weed whacker down, I go and I start writing. And I would highly recommend to anyone who needs to tap into flow, or maybe who has a difficult time journaling, whatever, pair that action of self-reflection with something like cutting grass or playing music or going for a walk, something that can help us tap into flow state or inspiration, which is where spirit lives, right? That's helped me just continually activate these spiritual experiences, finding flow, finding inspiration, and pairing that with something more meaningful or that could be perceived as taxing, so that we kind of habit stack the spirit with something practical.
Just used habit stacking. Wow, that comes out of a book. I don't know if
Atomic Habits.
Yeah. Wow, we got some stuff in common. We're gonna have to have it. This show's gonna carry on. I can tell you that with you and I. I'm an adopted kid too. My parents, when I was 6 months old, I was adopted, and yeah, we'll have to get into that. That's great. But I love the idea. When you start doing something, and art was this for me, when I start participating in an activity such as music or art, the brain wave or that central nervous system, the same place that anxiety and fear, where that operates in that brain wave, right, is the same place where creative exists. So when I'm creating, I take down that ability for me to get like anxiety. So people talk about creating a meal even, and all of a sudden these thoughts come over them because they haven't blocked them with the pressures of their night. They're like making a meal or making a piece of art or music, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, I'm awake and I'm alive, right? Because you got out of the way. And I think that's great for you to say to somebody, definitely early recovery, but as I continue to have these spiritual experiences, there's something about me getting out of the way, right? Like, I want to create, this is what I want. God goes like, no, I'll meet you where I meet you, right? I'm not a hiker. I think I told you that I don't necessarily hike, but I went to Colorado with a dude, and he said that if I would go on this hike, he would cold plunge with me. And I actually had the experience of cold plunging in Lake of the Clouds. If I show you the picture, bro, you're like, this is insane. Snow is coming into the lake, sitting up at 13,000 feet. And you're like, and I go like, wow. I go, I didn't want to go on this hike. That dude I just talked to the other day, he's still clean, he's still sober. He was, again, trying to get sober, right? And I go, like, he talked me into going on a hike. I talked him into going on a cold plunge. That was our influences. At the same point, God comes in and says, hey, guys, see me. And I think we both for a minute looked over that like valley and that mountain and realized neither one of us would be there if we hadn't had this kind of like involvement with each other, but then the openness and willingness to just like let our guard down. Like, I'm not going to go on a hike. I'm not going to go on a cold plunge. We both did what we didn't want to do. And that's where the experience came in. And I think there's some beauty in just saying, I don't know what you have for me today, God, but please let me be part of it. Like, just show me, and again, if it's cutting grass or making a piece of music or painting something, whatever it is, know that you can see God in those moments. I think that revelation is that you, for the first time, and me for the first time, when we put down drugs and alcohol, we are able to see God in some really cool places. Whether that's, again, cutting grass or playing golf. Like, I'm a golfer. And so I'm on the golf course, the first 25 years of my life, partying, drinking, doing the thing. Like, golf's kind of just an ancillary activity, right? Like, all of a sudden I sober up and I'm on golf courses, like looking at the dew and going, wow, the animals, ladybugs, or like the sounds and the calm. And for the first time I'm going, like, I can find God on the golf course. Like, he's here too. And there's some beauty and some magic. And we had Charlie Belgian, may or may not know him as a golfer. He had him on the show, and Charlie was talking about like never realizing how present God was on the golf course until he put down drugs and alcohol. But like, he became alive and aware. I think that's the other thing you kind of hit on, is that awareness of like, oh, you're here too. And then I can find you again. And then the more I do that activity, where I say, the more I'm like, guard down, God shows up. Oh, that was tough that time. Meditation you hit on is like really hard for me to meditate right up until I start doing it. And then it becomes easy. And then I realize, man, I'm meditating in the shower for an elongated period of time where I'm really being spoken to by spirit, by universe, by source, whatever you want to call it. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I'm connected. Like, I'm in tune. Like, that's so magical. And I think you hit on a lot of things you guys are doing, and I want to get into that too. I read your hat. It's like music and mental health. Like, that's Formerly Intoxicated's got a tour. You guys are going around. You're sharing your music. You're doing that and connecting with people on a way they never thought. in those arenas. Tell me a little bit about Formerly Intoxicated and the work you guys are doing in the community.
Absolutely. The vision for Formerly Intoxicated, a sober music movement, right? Showcasing sober artists and coaches from the Sober House Records roster and the community at large. It was actually born and bred out of my own need for a platform, right? Which I think a lot of great things are. If we can solve our own problem, right, we're that much more equipped to help the next person who's struggling with the same type of thing, right? That's at the foundation of recovery. And as a sober artist, I found that I was most often presented opportunities to participate and perform in environments that weren't necessarily sober friendly, right? Or even necessarily the type of audience that I needed to reach with my music and message. The foundation of my songwriting process is basically step work. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. I'm pouring my heart out about my addiction, about my recovery, about my character defects, about the process of them being removed from me, right? Like, and when I'm singing to a room full of people who are also on that journey, it's just a transformational experience for anybody who's willing to participate in that. And I didn't get that when I was performing in other spaces. Not that they were any better or worse, but I knew that we needed to create something new and something different. So it started actually at the Spot. In October of last year, we threw a Sober House release party. It was the debut announcement or premiere of Sober House Records, and just a launch party, if you will, and then an album release party for my most recent record, Unbear Your Burdens. And it went off great, man. We had like 300 people come out from the recovery community. We had some treatment centers that were tabled and brought their people out. And that's when I knew we needed to do it again, right? At first, it was just like a one-off idea. Let's do this. I want to throw an album release party. The Phoenix got involved and everybody loved it and said, when's the next one? And I was like, man, that's a great question, you know? So the next one to get really current is June 29th at the Barbell Saves Project. We've got Poster Child, an amazing local sober artist and producer. He's actually producing a couple of the tracks on my upcoming project. And we've got Janae, the artist. She's on a recovery journey as well. Cool. She's super, super cool. And then myself going to be performing. We got a couple sober poets as well. We're going to have tacos, ice cream, bunch of other cool vendors and whatnot. But I didn't know what to call it. I was just kind of like, what are we going to call this thing that we're doing, you know? And a buddy of mine, Eric Miller, at first I was just calling it Blake Mathews and Friends.
Of course you were.
You know, like, of course you were. Come on, baby. You know who Blake Mathews, you know, I got my friends coming out, right? That self-centered, self-interested, right, platform. I love it. But there's a DJ and producer named Diplo. Diplo has a series. He's got Mad Decent, his label. Diplo has Diplo and Friends. And so I thought, okay, that sounds cool. Let's run with that for now. And Eric called me. He's like, bro, I had a dream. I'm like, amazing. You know?
Good. Somebody did.
He goes, Formerly Intoxicated. And I was like, okay. He's like, what if we called the tour that? And I was like, I don't know about that, bro. Like, you know? Sure. But then I really sat with it and I got to designing, you know, because we do all the graphic design for the label and the brand and whatnot. And I start playing around with it and I'm thinking, man, I think this could really be a movement, like more than just an event, more than just, you know, an idea. This could be something that translates. Let's prove that sober entertainment experiences work in this market. Let's create a brand. Let's create a podcast. We now do the Formerly Intoxicated podcast as well. We created a platform for a mental health panel as well at our kickoff event in January. Brock Bevel was on the panel. We had a sober artist, Bryce III, fly out from Detroit. We had a Wolf Trigo in financial services on the panel, Rob Best from the Barbell Saves Project, and myself, just proving that this disease does not discriminate. It transcends race and culture and sex and gender and all of the things, but neither does the solution. Right. The solution doesn't discriminate either. So in this room, the Formerly Intoxicated Recovery Tour presented by the Phoenix, you get people from so many different walks of life all coming together just to experience music and art and culture in a new way that actually enriches our recovery and our sobriety rather than creating more roadblocks that we're going to have to unearth tomorrow when we have a hangover. Like, no, dog, I'm done with that. You know, let's get to beneath the surface and have some spiritual experiences together. So June 29th at the Barbell Saves Project, formerly Intoxicated, is sober music movement. Let's go. Totally free with 48 hours of sobriety. You just RSVP through the Phoenix app, super easy. And the next one after that, August 10th. After that, we're doing one in October. And I just got a call today from a buddy who's in Hollywood. He's wanting to do one out there. So we're proving it's working and looking for anyone who wants to be involved in this kind of a sober music movement, so that we can bring it to the people who need it. And I was one of those people.
Well, I'm telling you, man, again, I can't say it enough, man. I'm proud of the idea that people are doing what they need to do to help other people. When it comes down to it, and I love that quote by Ed Milet, and he says, we're most qualified to help the person we used to be, bro. I shared that with you, and you know, it lit you up and it lights me up that you're doing that, right? You're talking to the people that you used to be, right? And whether that's downtrodden or a musician, or if I'm an athlete or whatever it is that people have in their life, and they're able to speak to somebody else, then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that's great stuff. We're gonna promote with you. We're gonna do everything in our power. We have some good connections for you. We just had Dry in the Desert on, Ellie. I don't know if you know her, but she is big about normalizing sobriety. So they do pop up. What do you call those? The drinks when they don't have
mocktails.
Mocktails.
Cool.
She's got a pop-up mocktail tent, and she sets up, and it's cool. Like she said, like, I want to hold on to a cool-looking fruity drink, right? Like I want to feel as part of the same way that like they're trying to hand me a martini, right? There's something about that like, oh, my only choice is what, Sprite or Coke? Is that my only choice, or water now? You know what I mean? So we're going to have her at that event. I'm going to get on the phone with her as soon as we leave here. I'm going to make sure she's part of anything you have locally, and we'll make sure we're involved with the sponsorship of that. Tell me a little bit about the Phoenix.org. You know, obviously you've mentioned them a couple times. They're a great organization. Tell me about what they're doing in the same space.
Sure. The Phoenix.org is a national sobriety movement. They're a nonprofit. It was started in Colorado Springs about 14, 15 years ago, I think, by Scott Strode. It was started out of a CrossFit gym with the vision for providing free exercise classes for anyone with 48 hours of sobriety. Great mission, right? We know that the mind and body are so intimately connected when we're on this path of recovering from addiction. The spiritual component blended with the mind and body is crucial. That's the foundation of the Phoenix, right? Over the last 15 years, it has grown to more than 35 states, multiple countries, to provide free yoga, free coffee socials, free hiking, free walking. Now we're doing free music events, right? Ice cream socials on the first Friday of every month. And I mean, there's something for everything. There's meditation, there's sound healing. It's all available through their app. You just download it, search The Phoenix. You pop your zip code in there, answer a couple questions about your connection to and relation to recovery, because not everyone is a recovering addict or alcoholic, right? There's friends and family, there are supporters, there are allies, there are people who are sober curious, right? So how can we make this community and this movement as accessible as possible to as many people who are potentially interested in exploring this lifestyle, whether they've struggled with drug addiction and alcoholism or not, right? So the Phoenix supports all pathways to recovery. The only requirement is that 48 hours substance free to create the safe space. Download the app, check it out, and they've become the premier sponsor for the formerly Intoxicated Recovery Tour.
Well, that's great. I'm glad. They sound like great people. I'm going to say something to you. It's something that you may have read about us already, but our mission is this, is that our organization ignites passion and enthusiasm for recovery through the conduit of human connection. And I say that because that's what it sounds like to me. People coming alongside people to help them along the journey that they find themselves on, right? And part of that is through music, yoga, anything that they can find some help or some feeling of like, man, I'm wanted. I told a guy last night, bro, yeah, we'll take your number. And he said, no one's ever taken my number and meant it. Like, put him on a text thread. It was simple for us, right? Like my people are like, hey, we'll add you to the text thread. He literally was going for the first time, like, oh, you want to add me? Like, you're part of our crew. You're part of our tribe because you're on the same journey. I don't care that, and he's got 36 days sober, like, and he's undermining. And I'm going, that's 36 days sober more sober than you had 40 days ago. 40 days ago, you probably thought 36 days was so far out of reach, right? And now I've got somebody in that room, and the Phoenix, this sounds like people that I want to be involved with because they're saying, hey, listen, if you've got some time, we've got a place for you, right? And somebody else is going, hey, how do I get to 120 days? I don't know, ask the guy with 92, right? Ask the gal that's got, you know, a year, how to get there. And I guarantee it's all going to start with a person. Whether it's a sponsor, you've hit on sponsorship is key to the program, Alcoholics Anonymous or any recovery 12-step program. But also, it's important to carry me along because some days I just need a coffee. I just need to clean. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I really want to do. I want to sit down with somebody and I want to chat about life, man. I'm struggling with my wife. I got things going on with my kids. Life changes are happening. And I want a friend. And sometimes that friend's sober. Maybe they're not. But sometimes they give you a vision of what life could look like beyond drugs and alcohol. Because that's what I don't know how to do.
They're the living proof.
Right.
Right. If I can see it and feel it and experience it in the flesh, right, it becomes real to me. And that's actually one of the tracks on my most recent album, Living Proof, right? I say, I'm that living proof. I won't tell you what to do, but I could model what I did to find a better way to live. If I gave you a blueprint, would you wake up and run with it? Learn to fall in love with it. You may or may not like it, but we don't lose. I don't snooze anymore. I follow suit. No ifs or ands or buts about it. Are you about it? Put that pen to paper, ink it. We're highly blessed and favored. I train my mind for greatness every morning when I wake up. Now we're living proof. Wow. That's the work, right?
Wow.
Wake up, train your mind, put pen to paper, right? I don't care if you've got 2 days sober or 10 years sober. Where are you at today? What am I doing today to maintain my spiritual fitness? Right. Is anger coming up? Is fear coming up? Cool. There's nothing inherently wrong with anger or fear or anxiety or judgment or any of those things. There's nothing inherently wrong with these instincts, right? Like the book talks about. It's what am I going to do with these instincts? It's like a check engine light. Okay, it's a good thing that anger is coming up. Oftentimes people perceive these expressions of human emotions as things that are a burden. No, they're a blessing. They're a compass. Like if anger's come out, it's like amazing. Now I can address it, you know?
Right.
Whereas if anger's buried beneath the surface, if resentment is just pressed and suppressed deep down within our gut, right? Because the body keeps the score. That's what leads to disease, literal, like physical disease that I won't even get into that right now because I'm not uniquely qualified to talk about nutrition and the body in that way. But there's such an undeniable correlation between my spiritual fitness and the action of maintaining it through literal tangible things like pen to paper and transformational conversations, right? Putting myself out there and participating in life, even when I don't want to, especially when I don't want to. Hiking the mountain and going and doing the cold plunge because I didn't want to, right? Choosing to go with Hannah, shout out Tinkahantas, to Piestewa Peak at 4:30 in the morning. And that's where I end up meeting Eric Miller from the Phoenix for the first time when I was less than 48 hours sober, who then became that person for me, right? Co-founder of formerly Intoxicated. I would have never met Eric or founded this movement if I hadn't been willing to do the thing that I didn't want to do. So I love that you mentioned that, doing the thing that I don't want to do. That's probably best for me. And then the second thing, the conduit of human connection. Dude, so that's Let's Go Recovery's mission statement.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Our organization, what is
Read it, man.
I want to read it, bro. I want to be on camera representing this. Let's Go Recovery. Our organization ignites enthusiasm and passion for recovery through the conduit of human connection. Recovery, defined as a noun transformed from a hopeless state of mind, body, and spirit into alignment with one's authentic self. Let's go recovery.org. Baby, come on. I love it, dude. I love what you guys are doing, man.
Yeah, it's just people. Right, it's people, and I think that our drugs and addictions take us to places of loneliness, right? Like you hit on something the other day about depression, right? Right, you talked to me about just that deep rest, that idea that, hey, here I am, and always in my mind, I see that as a lonely place. And now we're saying, no, you don't have to be alone, bro. That's on your very best days. We're talking about fun events. I'm talking about when you're hurting, when you're broken. I also don't want to be alone in that. And usually there's a man in my case, or there's a woman for a woman that can say, let me come be along with you. Let me come get you out of whatever funk you're in. Anger you hit on. Easy for me to get to anger really easy, in my sober, 3.5+ years clean, like I can still get angry, right? I still got a daughter that me and her come at it like this. And it's like, why do I do that? Well, I'm sober, but I'm flawed, right? And so how do I react to that in a better way? Is my interaction with anger better this time than it was last time? Still something I'm working on. But you know who helps me with that is a guy like Alan, the chairman of my board, who says things like, hey, man, you don't have to be angry about that. Let's talk about it. Where did that come from? How are you addressing it? Because that says I'm making a change today that can impact my tomorrow. Right? Like that's what you're talking about, right? Is that there's people that are going to do that. And our organization is also not uniquely qualified. There's other people on this movement. And we're saying, I mean, maybe it's grabbing a microphone if that's what you're comfortable with, but maybe it's just talking to that woman in the cubicle next to you or the boss in the office upstairs, I like to say, who is struggling to, I know it, that they're hurting. We want to be there to help them just as much as the guy on the corner that's looking for a meal. Bro, like it doesn't discriminate, you said. And I love that language because everybody's healing and hurting because of something, right? And you guys are taking a frontline mission to that. And Phoenix obviously is, and we're going to be alongside you. There's nothing you've said on today's episode that I can't get behind. So I'm fired up about meeting you. I'm glad you took the time with us today. Anything in closing that you want to kind of add or throw out? We're going to be at your show. What else do we need to know about you or the organization?
I'm so grateful that you mentioned those deeper, darker days and places. Yeah. Thank you for going there, because that's where real transformation happens, in the dark night of the soul. Right? And that's what we're here to do, is to walk people through those spaces, right? We've run from our pain. We've pursued pleasure and the highs and the rush, for at least for me, I'll speak for myself, for so long. But I'm finding that the deeper connection that I have with self and other lies through my self-reflection and discovery and expression from those deeper and darker places. I have to be willing to allow myself to be seen in that space, to be transparent enough and have the courage to be honest and to reach out and say, hey, I need some help, So for anyone who maybe is still in that place, maybe you're sober and just wrestling with mental health or a diagnosis or whatever, or maybe you're not sober and you're also dealing with depression or anxiety or whatever it is. These are safe spaces for you to self-discover, to reflect, right? Self-reflection happens in private, right? Through journaling, through meditation or whatever, but this is also a form of self-reflection. And in the model that we're building through Sober House Records for our artists and any community members that want to participate in our programs, self-reflection in community leads to discovery.
Wow.
Discovery provides us the opportunity to either hold on to what we've learned or to let it go and express it. Right? Self-reflection leads to self-discovery. Self-discovery provides us the opportunity to self-express. And it's through self-expression that we breed deeper connection and authenticity with ourselves and with others. So, dude, I feel like we've been on such a high, electrifying energy through this conduit of human connection, and you took a moment to bring it back to the reality of the yin to the yang, and I appreciate you for that. So I hope to see you guys out. Once again, my name is Blake Mathews, recording artist and recovery coach, co-founder of Sober House Records and the formerly Intoxicated Recovery Tour, June 29th at the Barbell Saves Project. Come hang out with us, totally free. 48 hours of sobriety is the only entry fee. We love you guys so much. Thank you for having us on the podcast today. Shout out Let's Go Recovery.
Appreciate you.
And let's keep this vibe moving.
Love it, man. Let's do it. We'll see you there.
All right, we'll do. Peace.
I hope you heard something today that gets you to take one small step into the version of the person that you want to be. For more content like this, subscribe to our channel below, or you can go on letsgorecovery.org. Until next time,